Welcome to Love and Tears. I'd really appreciate your comment. It helps me understand if you felt the story and how I can make the next one even better. I heard it before I saw anything, a laugh. The kind of laugh people use when they want to sound impressive. It floated from the kitchen into the hallway, bright and sharp against the quiet house. I had just come in from the garage, still in my work jacket, thinking about leftovers and a quick shower before bed. My name is Evan Price. I'm 38 years old and operations manager for a logistics company in Denver. I was reaching for a beer when I realized my wife was on speaker with her friends. I didn't mean to slow down, I just did. The laugh came again, and then the sentence that changed everything. I control him with one thing. Works every time. I didn't storm in or clear my throat like some jealous sitcom husband who can't take a joke. I just froze fingers still wrapped around the fridge handle, listening to the low hum of the compressor and my own breathing getting strangely deliberate. The cold light from the fridge washed over my hands, pale and tired. I eased the door shut quietly and leaned back against the counter, hidden from the kitchen doorway. The voices were familiar, the same two women she always met for brunch. The same two who said we should keep the spark playful, which I'd learned was code for turn your marriage into a performance. She sounded alive, almost proud, like she'd just unlocked some new achievement. I can't recall every word, but the pattern was clear enough. If I pushed back, she'd shut down. If I disagreed, she withdrew. If I wanted closeness, it became a trade. It's strange what your mind does in those first few seconds after hearing something like that. It starts flipping through memories you didn't even realize you'd kept filed away. Tuesday night, 2 weeks ago, she brushed past me like I was a stranger because I couldn't make a last-minute dinner. The weekend, I suggested we stay within budget on furniture. She went silent for a full day. The nights I reached for her and she smiled, that distant smile promising tomorrow. And tomorrow always slipped away. You don't immediately think betrayal. You just think, oh, that's why. I didn't need to hear the fake concern from her friends or the smug advice about boundaries. I stepped quietly away from the doorway and walked upstairs, calm, deliberate, like a man who just remembered something he left behind. Our bedroom was dim lit, only by a slice of streetlight cutting across the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the thin line of dust glowing on the dresser. It's funny the tiny things your eyes notice when you're trying not to feel something too big. I make schedules for a living. I handle bottlenecks. I keep trucks moving across states, snow heat, road closures, all of it. My job is to anticipate pressure points and fix them before the whole system backs up. And that night, I realized something painful. I'd been treating my marriage like one of those systems, assuming it would fix itself if I just kept working at it. If I gave it time. If I offered patience. If I suggested another talk, planned another weekend, made another effort. I thought consistency would heal it. I thought effort would be enough. But hearing her say she controlled me with one thing, that flipped every switch. I changed into a t-shirt and sat at my desk in the dark. The house was quiet, winter quiet, with only the hum of the furnace and the occasional car passing outside. Laughter drifted faintly from downstairs, muffled by distance. I opened my laptop out of habit, then closed it again. I wanted facts. And the facts were simple. For months, she hadn't been compromising. She'd been training me, replacing partnership with manipulation and dressing it up as normal relationship friction. And once I saw it, it clicked, everything lined up with cold clinical clarity. The spontaneous plans she made that were always on her schedule. The affection that performed so well in public but vanished behind closed doors. The subtle eye rolls whenever I suggested anything that didn't revolve around her circle. All those things I used to overlook because love gives you such good excuses to ignore the truth. She'd recently joined a book club at the co-working space, and suddenly everything was about owning your power. I didn't mock it. People grow. People experiment. They try on ideas, see what fits. But somehow our marriage had been reduced to a vending machine, one button she liked pressing over and over. A text buzzed on my phone, a buddy from work asking if I was still in for that Saturday hike. I typed yes before I even thought about it. Small word, big shift. That one word made me realize how many times I'd cancelled plans like that, always leaving weekends open just in case she decided we were good again. When did I start living on standby? When did I hand over my calendar to her moods? Downstairs, her laughter rose again. Bright, easy, familiar. Then a door shut and footsteps moved toward the garage. She'd stepped outside with her phone for privacy. The kind of privacy she never thought I needed when it came to my feelings. I lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling fan. The slow rotation made me think of weight distribution, the kind I deal with at work. Too much weight on one axle and you wear it out. Shift it forward, you lose traction. Shift it back, you fishtail. Our marriage had been fishtailing for a long time. I kept correcting the wheel. She enjoyed the slide. There's a temptation to dramatize moments like this, to imagine throwing a fit, slamming a door, shouting the perfect line like in some movie scene. But that's not me. I like plans that can be measured. So I made one. And it started with a boundary so quiet she wouldn't even hear it at first. The one thing she thought controlled me would no longer be something I chased. All I had to do was remove the lever from her machine. She came upstairs later, hair smelling like the expensive shampoo she always buys with a coupon code and an influencer's discount. She placed her phone face down on the nightstand, like she always did. I looked over and said softly, "Hey." Neutral voice, calm tone. She smiled, soft routine, then slipped under the covers without reaching for me. That used to sting. That night, it didn't. It informed me. Information is clean. It doesn't demand reaction. It asks for action. I didn't sleep much. My mind was busy redistributing weight. I opened my notes app and started a list. Gym before work 3 days a week. Hike Saturday. Call my brother. Book the checkup I'd been postponing. Oil change. New boots. Nothing revolutionary. Nothing I'd brag about. Just small, solid things that belong to me. Steps toward balance. Quiet, steady mind. Around 2 a.m., the furnace kicked on. She turned over, pulling the duvet closer. I watched the line of streetlight inch lower on the wall and remembered something my dad used to tell me when he taught me how to drive on icy back roads near Fort Collins. Don't overcorrect. Point where you want to go, then hold it. That's exactly what I decided to do. By morning, the house smelled like coffee and early light. I poured a cup, set my running shoes by the door. She mumbled a sleepy good morning, kissed my cheek, and asked if I was coming to dinner with her friends this weekend. "I've got plans," I said. I watched the flicker on her face, a quick flash of surprise smoothed into a casual shrug. I sipped my coffee and made a note to buy trail mix for Saturday. Something was off, yes, but not just with her. With me too. I'd let the system run on a variable I didn't control, and I called that love. That morning, I adjusted the settings. The first test came quietly the way winter sneaks up on this city. One extra layer of cold every day until you suddenly see your own breath. 2 mornings later, she floated into the kitchen with that bright mood she wears like perfume whenever she's ready for a win. I was packing a protein shake and trail mix for the hike I'd already confirmed. She watched me measure almonds like I was speaking a new language. "Big plans?" she asked. "Yeah. Early start. I'll be gone most of the day." A tiny pause, just long enough to measure obedience. "We were going to look at rugs with Kara," she said lightly. "But okay, before I would have offered to move things around. Meet them later. Turn it into a couple errand." But this time, I just smiled. "Hope you find a good one," I said, snapping the lid on the container. Her smile faltered, not much, just a half-second wobble in the rhythm she was used to. The week stacked more moments like that. When I asked her to loop me in before committing our weekend to her friend's brunch crawl, she activated what I call the closed shop routine. Remote, polite, unbothered. A few years ago, that would have sent me straight into repair mode. Now I did my emails, hit the gym, slept fine. The silence didn't feel like punishment anymore. It just existed like weather. You either bring a jacket or you don't. The clouds don't care what you choose. That Tuesday night was my first real test. A client's warehouse automation went down, and I stayed late to stabilize the system. I texted her that I'd be home late, told her to start dinner without me. When I finally walked in, the takeout boxes were already on the counter, neatly stacked like evidence, and she stood there with that look. "We were supposed to stop by Megan's," she said. I said I'd try. I answered, keeping my tone steady. We had trucks waiting for 40 minutes. I fixed it. She gave me that tight, polished smile people use when they think you just confessed to something terrible. Right. Work comes first. Tonight it did, I said. Tomorrow might not. That used to trigger a cold silence so sharp I'd feel it in my teeth. This time she just lifted a shoulder, took her food to the couch, and turned the TV up slightly louder than usual. I ate at the counter. No reaction, no chase, just me, my notes, and the hum of the fridge. By Thursday, the old tricks were back. The HOA had emailed about trimming the maple out front, and I'd booked a crew for Saturday morning. She wanted to postpone, said Kara was coming to shoot photos, and the ladder would ruin the vibe. I already booked the crew, I told her. Her smirk landed right on cue. We'll see how much you miss me tonight. Okay, I said, simply rinsing my cup. That okay. It threw her off. The game needs tension, pursuit, apology, imbalance. Without it, she had to choose between being mad or bored. She picked bored, went upstairs early, slept before I even closed my laptop. By the weekend, the pattern glowed like runway lights. Every time I didn't bend, she rotated between three moods: silence, sarcasm, or sudden sweetness. And the truth, I noticed it long before she did. Saturday morning, while the tree guys set up, she came out in the robe that used to stop me mid-task. She smiled soft and practiced. "What do you want for breakfast?" "I'm good," I said, checking the invoice. "They'll start in 10 minutes. Her face didn't crack, it recalibrated. You could almost hear the gears turning. Then came the second attempt. "There's an art fair downtown today. Got a car tune-up at 1, I said. Then a run. Simple. Boring. Mine. That afternoon, she tried a softer attack. "Folding laundry she never folds?" she asked. "You've been distant. Everything okay?" "Everything's organized," I said. "Work's heavy. I'm catching up on stuff I let slide, like sleep, cardio oil, changes lunch with my brother." She caught the message under the words. Her jaw tightened, then loosened into a shrug she hoped looked casual. Sunday morning, I finally said what had been stuck in my throat for months. We were both making coffee, moving around the kitchen like two ghosts rehearsing an old dance. I stared into my mug. "I'm going to say this once cleanly. When you pull back to influence me, it doesn't make me want to move toward you. It makes the whole thing feel cheap." She blinked like I'd opened a window in January. "I don't do that," she said. "I'm not asking you to agree," I told her. "I'm telling you how it lands. I'm not playing along anymore." Silence. The kettle hissed. Steam filled the air. Old habits begged me to smooth it over, to say something lighter. But I let the silence stay. Let it breathe. She finally laughed that practiced airy sound. "You're being dramatic." "I am being specific," I said. That line ended the scene. No shouting. No exit. Just two people on opposite sides of something invisible. She took her coffee to the couch, scrolling too fast to be calm. I took mine to the garage, cleaned the workbench, put air in the tires. It's wild the number of small things a man lets slide when he's waiting for permission to exist in his own house. The days after that only tightened the screws. Every time I held my line, she invented an audience narrating me to her friends on speaker, like I wasn't in the next room. "He's on this new independence kick," she said once, laughing. Independence from what I almost laughed too. From my own over-accommodation, maybe. So I put on my shoes, stepped outside, and walked a mile before dinner. Because sometimes the quietest rebellion is movement. The air was cold enough to sting inside my nose. Clean, bracing, like honesty. Midweek, she weaponized concern. "You seem unhappy," she said, tilting her head, wearing that empathy face she keeps for occasions like this. "Is it work? Is it me?" I was careful. "I'm clear," I said. "That's different from unhappy." Clear about what I will and won't do, I told her. "I'll listen. I'll compromise when it's mutual. But I won't respond to tests." That word tests hit its target. Her eyelids twitched before she masked it. "You're imagining things." "Maybe," I said, and walked upstairs to call my brother about spring fishing. We'd talked about booking a cabin for years, never did. That night I did. The old script would have told me to circle back, apologize, touch her shoulder, ask how to reset. That script stayed in the drawer. I still did what a husband does, took out the trash, fixed the cabinet hinge, replaced the furnace filter. But I'd stopped living like scarcity was love. She kept trying to sell me a drought. I'd started carrying my own canteen. The next Saturday, she arranged a double date with a couple who thought arguments were foreplay. I said I'd pass. "You'll make it look bad," she warned, to whom I asked. After she left, I cooked a steak. FaceTimed my nephew, fell asleep, reading no TV, no noise, no waiting. When she came home late, she made just enough sound to remind me she was there. Then nothing. The silence wasn't cold anymore. It was honest. Something shifted after that. Less arrogance, more uncertainty. One night, she sat on the edge of the couch like she had news. "We should schedule a weekend away." She said eyes on me instead of the calendar. "Reset, you know. I'm not against it," I told her. "But a weekend's just gloss if the terms underneath don't change." "What terms?" "Respect isn't conditional," I said. "And closeness isn't currency." For the first time, she looked at the coffee table like the answer might be carved into it. The old lever had stopped working. You could see the moment she realized she didn't have a replacement part. I stayed steady, quiet, grounded. The man she once thought she could spin like a weather vane had turned into a post set in concrete. She could still check which way the wind blew, but it wouldn't turn because she whistled. The decision didn't arrive with fireworks, just a click final, like a seatbelt locking in. I stopped living like a man waiting for rations to be dropped from a helicopter that might never come. No announcements, no speeches, just an internal update to the operating system. I would not be trained by shortage again. The first change was subtraction. I took the lever off the table. At night, I read on my side lamp, low, shoulders loose. When my thoughts wandered toward bargaining, I brought them back like calling a dog that finally knows its name. She noticed by the second night. Her hand brushed my shoulder, playful tone, the robe, the old move. I smiled, asked how her day was. Mornings solidified into routine gym before sunrise. The quiet weight room became a kind of sanctuary. No commentary, no tests, just gravity telling the truth. I added 5 minutes to the rower each session, logged the numbers without fanfare. Numbers don't care who approves. By week's end, I was sleeping deeper, waking clearer. It's strange you don't realize how much mental bandwidth you waste walking a maze until you step out of it. I rebalanced my calendar. Lunch with my brother every Wednesday, non-negotiable. Friday coffee with an old co-worker, the kind of guy who remembers birthdays but never makes a big deal about it. Saturday hikes stayed on the list. No announcements, no explanations. Just stopped cancelling. And the small flinch, that hesitation when I hit send on plans, was gone. Turns out, anxiety often looks like permission you think you owe someone. She tried nostalgia next the playlist from our first year. The whiskey I used to love the old inside jokes resurrected like ghosts. I laughed where it fit, thanked her for the pour, then went back to the spreadsheet I was building for a cost analysis. Closeness, I decided, wasn't a performance, so the phone became neutral ground. I stopped waiting for a buzz that told me the climate had changed and I was finally allowed to be happy. I turned off half my notifications. The rest stayed for work and family. When she texted a midday selfie, "Miss me," I replied, "Meeting in 5. Call you after." When she sent a calendar invite titled Reset Weekend, I accepted it with a note, "Discuss terms first." She ignored it, started browsing boutique cabins. I let it sit, because silence isn't a weapon if you don't swing it. Mine wasn't punishment. It was simply the absence of a chase. When she cooled off after a decision she didn't like, I didn't patch it. I let normal life sound like itself. The dishwasher humming laundry, tumbling ESPN low in the background. The house stopped feeling like a test site. It started feeling like home again. And with that, something else sharpened work. Without the tug of constant appeasement, I finally made a call I'd been avoiding. Told a client, "We won't eat your rush fees just because your team forgot what lead times are." Then I offered real timelines, real costs, and a cheaper alternative if they could learn to plan. It felt good, not just professional good, but personal good. Because somewhere along the way, I'd stopped asking for permission to be whole. The client respected my boundary. At 5:40 p.m., I shut the laptop and didn't open it again until morning. That simple act, closing it, felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. Then she escalated. Not through words this time, but proximity. A movie night. A blanket half shared. Her leg brushed against mine. My body remembered what it used to mean, how I was trained to respond, how giving in once felt like peace. But memory can be retrained. When she leaned in, I didn't pull away. I just let the moment be what it was. Present, small, without expectation. She withdrew first, surprised that warmth could exist without a transaction attached. Later, some friends invited us to a game night, the kind of crowd that thrives on public affection. Before, I would have gone just to prove we were fine. This time I said I had an early morning run. She stayed home instead, sitting beside me on the couch, scrolling her phone without really reading. Every few minutes, she glanced up, waiting for me to ask, "What's wrong?" But I only ask questions I'm ready to carry to the end. That week, I made one quiet move that mattered only to me. I set up a second pillow on the couch in my office. I didn't sleep there, I just made it ready. A silent declaration that peace now had options. Knowing I could choose space without drama made the bedroom feel less like a negotiation table. Midweek temptation came, wearing a red dress. She stood in the doorway, her hair down, that same lipstick she always wore when she wanted a yes. She smiled, and maybe for a moment it was genuine. I walked over, kissed her forehead, told her she looked incredible, and went back to chopping vegetables. She stood there, waiting for the invitation that never came. Later, she wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. That familiar press, soft, warm, practiced. I covered her hands with mine, took one slow breath, and stepped aside to drain the pasta. Her hands fell away, confusion in their weight. Control had been replaced by contact. And contact wasn't enough anymore. Little by little, quiet boundaries formed. I stopped explaining every part of my day to someone who weaponized the details. I shared what mattered and gave the rest to people who actually asked. I moved my running shoes to the front door like a man who expected to use them. Replaced the porch light without asking if it matched her aesthetic. Booked a dental appointment. Small things, but they added up. You learn how much of yourself you've deferred to someone else's temperature when you start living on your own rhythm again. Then one night, her voice broke the dark. No pretense, no act. "Why don't you want me?" I stared at the ceiling for a long moment before answering. "I want a marriage that doesn't use closeness as leverage. If that's not what we have, I won't pretend it is." She said nothing. By the end of the month, the air in the house had changed. My days had shape again. They didn't wobble every time the walls did. She tested less often because the map had changed. She learned I could be kind without being compliant. And I became a man who could walk through his own rooms without asking permission to feel okay. That's what silent withdrawal really is. Not punishment, not control. It's choosing peace over performance. Letting your actions speak the only language that still makes sense. When I stopped playing, the game got very quiet. Guilt came first, dressed as concern, holding up a mirror I was supposed to look into. She said she felt shut out. Her voice was soft rehearsed. I listened, then told her calmly that I had changed because the way we were living had turned into a negotiation I never agreed to. She frowned, asked if we could start over. I said we could start honest. She left the room, plates clattering louder than they needed to. When guilt didn't work, she tried seduction new. Perfume late-night whispers, her thigh brushing mine, while a show I didn't watch flickered on the screen. But I kept contact as contact. Nothing more. You could almost feel her confusion, not angry, just pressurized. The lever she used to pull no longer moved anything. Then came blame. She said my withdrawal was cruel, that a real husband would fight. That I was being cold, petty. I told her I wasn't being cruel. I was being precise. I was done measuring love by scarcity. She said I was twisting words. I let it sit. Because arguments built on heat can't survive in calm air. And that night, as silence filled the kitchen, I realized it finally felt bigger without the fire. Then came the panic. Not the kind with shouting, the quieter kind. The kind that moves fast, tries to fix everything before it breaks. Sudden invitations to double dates. Quality time plans that somehow always required me to cancel what I'd already booked. A rushed idea for a weekend getaway, pretending that a change of scenery could replace an honest conversation. I heard the speed in her voice and slowed down on purpose. I told her I was open to spending time together once we were aligned on terms. She blinked, tilted her head, and asked, "What terms?" Like the word had changed its meaning since last week. I repeated them. Respect, not contingent. Closeness, not currency. She looked past my shoulder and said, "We're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Simple is only simple when you're the one holding the remote." Her friends noticed before her family did. The same two who'd once applauded her confidence started texting me directly. "Everything okay?" I said. We were sorting things out and left it there. Whatever story she'd been telling them began to lose altitude once I stopped providing the counter-narrative that made them feel useful. A week later, at a birthday dinner, one of them leaned close and whispered that I seemed different in a good way. My wife heard it, and that mattered. The first public crack appeared at a neighborhood cookout. She told a small group that I'd been distant, that maybe I needed to relearn how to be affectionate. She laughed like it was something light-hearted, a cute problem, fixable with a themed date night. Our neighbor Mari, who's raised 3 teenagers and can smell nonsense a mile away, asked calmly, "Is that mutual?" The table went quiet. That polite suburban kind of quiet. I could have rescued her, but I didn't. She changed the subject to the grill. Later, walking home with a casserole bowl I hadn't wanted to bring, she accused me of letting people think badly of her. I told her I'd simply let them think for themselves. Her family joined the concern chorus soon after. Her mother FaceTimed to ask if we were okay. I told her we were recalibrating and that I was committed to a healthy outcome, together or apart. That phrasing made everyone slow down. Her mother doesn't like slow. She said, "Marriage is about working through things." I agreed and added, "Working isn't the same as bargaining." That night, my wife told me I'd embarrassed her, that I was being dramatic with her mom. I told her clarity always looks dramatic to someone used to fog. The next day revealed the truth of who we were becoming. She tried to reclaim control with a grand gesture, a fancy spa weekend, booked without asking confirmation, texted with a winking emoji. It used to work. It used to make me fold, make me grateful. I replied, "Looks nice. We can go once we solve the thing the trip would hide." An hour of silence. Then a text. "Forget it." I went to the gym, lifted, ate the same breakfast, sent my brother a link for fishing licenses. By afternoon, the slam door turned into a long message about compromise. I replied, "Agree. But I won't compromise on being treated like a partner." She left it on red. Silence did what silence always does. It told the truth we were too tired to repeat. 2 days later, she tried sweetness again, the big version this time. Candlelight in the dining room. Reservations at a place that books 3 weeks out. Effort wrapped in perfume. I appreciated it. I told her so. At dinner, she reached across the table for my hand. "Let's get back to us," she said softly. I asked, "Which us? The one where affection is currency? Or the one where affection is simply what 2 people give freely without a price tag?" She pulled her hand back like the table had burned her. The waiter arrived with water, timing the comedian that never gets tired. There's a version of this story where a man uses his new steadiness like a weapon. That's not mine. I still did everything my name was on paid bills. Fixed the gate latch. Checked tire pressure, mowed the lawn. I answered when spoken to. I didn't ghost my own house. I just stopped performing. And that broke the game. The rules didn't change loudly. They expired quietly. She'd pick up a piece and realize it no longer fit the board. People began noticing even without my explaining. At her sister's barbecue, someone made a joke about the wife who controls the husband. Last year, it would have earned a cheap laugh. This time it fell flat. My brother-in-law asked me about a hiking trail near Evergreen. We spent 10 minutes talking about elevation gain while the rest of the noise faded into background static. My wife watched silent, trying to find her place in a scene that didn't need her direction. Later in the car, she said, "You've become aloof." I said, "I've become congruent." The panic peaked on a Wednesday night. She came to bed late, laid there in the dark, and finally asked the real question, the one that had been hiding under every argument. What do you need from me? For a second, I saw the woman I married. The one who used to meet me halfway before we started keeping score. I kept my voice steady. I need partnership without performance. If you want me, want me. If you don't say it, but don't price it. She stared at the ceiling, then nodded once, small and quiet, like someone who'd just heard a diagnosis they already knew but never wanted confirmed. The next morning, she cancelled brunch with Kara and stayed home. No big speech, no tension. Just her folding towels asking how my call with the automation vendor went. Normal questions, real ones. After lunch, she got restless. I could almost hear the old engine start to turn. She nearly reached for the lever and stopped. That counted. Growth doesn't announce itself with trumpets. It just skips one reflex and chooses another. A week of small resets followed. She suggested a walk without her phone, said yes to one of my plans instead of maybe. Touched my arm once, without an agenda, hiding underneath, progress not completion. Then a message pinged from one of her friends, the one who lives for Drama Girls Night. Come out and remember who you are. She read it, looked at me waiting for a reaction. I said, if you want to go, go. Enjoy yourself. She searched my face for a tell. Found none. Put the phone face down. That night, she didn't go. Instead, she sat on the back steps and watched the sky bleed into the fence line. When I joined her, she asked, want some tea? Sure, I said. It was almost nothing. And somehow, it was everything. The game hadn't disappeared because I won. It withered because I stopped feeding it. And now, in the quiet space left behind, we both started to see who we really were. Without the props, she tried one last move, a half confession wrapped in a half apology. I thought that's how women kept control, she said, eyes fixed on the mug in her hands. It's how people avoid honesty, I told her. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. We didn't fix everything that night, but the performance lost its audience, and without applause, it couldn't stand anymore. That night, I went to bed certain of one thing: I was reachable for truth and unreachable for games. Everyone could finally tell the difference. So could she. The next move would be her first real one in a long time, or the last gesture before the curtain dropped. Either way, I'd sleep fine. We didn't end with a slammed door or a suitcase in the yard. It came down to a table, 2 mugs, and a list short enough to remember. Saturday morning, light the good kind, clear and square on the wood. She looked like she'd practiced 5 openings and gave up on all of them. I spared us both the warm-up. I'm going to put my terms on the table, I said. Not as a threat, just clarity. She nodded, bracing herself. One partnership without performance. No using closeness as leverage. If you're upset, say it. If you want me. Don't price it. 2 mutual plans. My calendar isn't open inventory. We decide together. 3, we fix what's underneath, not the optics. No reset weekends to avoid the talk. If this works, it works on a Tuesday night after takeout just as much as at some mountain cabin. I stopped there. More gives people places to hide. She stared into her mug and finally asked, and if I can't? Then we separate, I said quietly. With respect. You have your path. I have mine. But I won't live inside a negotiation again. The old me would have rushed to soften that, to offer a way out before silence swallowed the room. This time, I let the quiet sit. It wasn't a threat. It was just the truth. She looked tired, but in a way that felt honest. I don't know who taught me that was power, she said softly. Maybe I just didn't want to feel small. You're not small, I told her. You just kept choosing the smallest tool. We waved at two neighbors, talked about nothing. Back inside, she went upstairs to shower. I wiped the coffee rings off the table and booked myself a Sunday boxing class. The next week was quiet in a way that told the truth. We lived like two adults with a shared lease and a question between us. Wednesday night, she put her phone away, sat beside me on the couch. No armor this time. Can we have a conversation where no one keeps score? She asked. Yeah, I said, and turned off the TV. We really talked. About the small betrayals that don't make headlines. Cancelled plans we never called cancelled. Jokes that landed like jabs. How easy it is to replace attention with control because attention requires honesty. She said she'd learned to negotiate because it felt safer than asking. I said I'd learned to appease because it felt safer than leaving. We sat with that hands flat on our legs. Words, the only thing in the room. By Friday, she asked if I'd go to counseling with her. Someone practical, she said. Someone who gives homework. I said yes. With one condition? No. Theatre in the room, no theatre at home. She agreed. The therapist asked us to list our non-negotiables, then prove we could honor each other's without being policed. That homework was going to be the bridge or the goodbye. We did it. 3 weeks. She apologized once, no brackets, no footnotes. I accepted without turning it into a sermon. I planned a weekend breakfast. She showed up, didn't punish me for the past. She planned a dinner and didn't make it a test. In bed, we started simple. Hands, conversation, no script. There's a difference between someone meeting you and someone rewarding you. This time, it felt like meeting. It also felt fragile. Then came the midpoint test, the one you never schedule. Her friends texted again, let's get the old you back. She showed me the message. I told her, go if you want to. She looked for the old tell, found nothing, then said, I'll pass. She replied, I'm working on different things now. The group chat went silent. She placed her phone face up on the counter. Maybe that meant something. Maybe it meant everything. Sunday. In the car outside the grocery store, I finally asked the question that had been living like a shadow. Do you want this marriage? Or do you want the version where I'm just a shape? You move around so you don't have to feel vulnerable. Her answer was clean. I want the marriage, and I'm willing to feel stupid learning how. That might be the bravest sentence I've ever heard in my life, and I believed it. Enough to try. Trying didn't mean forgetting my exit. I kept my boundaries visible. My calendar, my gym time, Wednesday lunches with my brother. 2 months later, I realized I'd stopped checking the climate before I smiled. We hiked without keeping score, argued about a dumb lamp, and fixed it in 20 minutes. She grabbed my hand, crossing the street because the light changed and the world was moving. No, we didn't turn into the couple posting golden hour photos with captions about doing the work. We became two people who could say no without losing yes. That's better than romantic. It's sustainable. There's another version of this story one, where she picked her crowd over this table, where the lever still worked because it was easy. In that version, I pack a bag, forward my mail, and leave quietly, not out of anger, but alignment. I know that version because I kept it real the whole time. Kept an apartment link in my notes. Kept a list of furniture I'd take. Kept my head clear enough to go if respect didn't show up. That option made me honest. It made her honest too. Months later, we ran into Marie, the neighbor with teenagers and perfect radar for nonsense. She looked at us, really looked, then smiled. "Whatever you're doing," she said, "keep doing it." My wife laughed a small, quiet laugh that meant thank you without a speech. We walked home with pasta and yogurt. Nothing heroic in the bags. At the door, she turned and said, "You know, you could have left right." "I did," I said. "That's why I could stay." I don't know how this story lands for anyone else. I only know how it lands for me. Respect isn't a clause you add later. It's the ground you build on, or it's quicksand. The lever she thought controlled me is now scrap metal. In its place, something simpler. Two people who show up without a price tag. And if the old game ever tries to come back with a new coat of paint, I won't negotiate with it. I won't beg for decency. I'll wish her well, hand her what's hers, and walk out with my name, my peace, and my Tuesday night. Because staying is a choice, not a sentence. And respect is not negotiable. You've been listening to Love and Tears. If this story spoke to you, leave a comment. Tell me what part hit home. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that linger after the last line.